Hey, what's going on, everybody? Mark Bassini, the CEO of Grey Group Tactical and the host of the Gray Zone podcast. I am here with Jeremiah Wilbur right now. Obviously, he's a retired former Green Beret. Been out of the service now for just a little bit, looking great, of course, though, still, you know what I mean? But no, he is, on a serious note, he is the founder of War Party Ranch, or excuse me, co founder of War Party Ranch and founder of War Party Movement. So I wanted to get out here and kind of set up a space to not only talk to Jeremiah just about what he's doing in his nonprofit space and how that's transitioning and working, but then also kind of run through some of the things that he's gone through with his transition from the time in the military into civilian life and what's been working, what's not, and just kind of have a conversation and cut through some of the bullshit that everybody else kind of puts out and just get it from horses' mouths.
Yes, sir.
So cool, man. So Jeremiah, can you tell us one, like, I know you started War Party Movement first, correct?
Yes, sir.
All right. So tell and just kind of give like a quick background of everybody to cover down like what War Party Movement is.
Awesome. So, I spent 22 years in the military. My last day in the Army was January 31st, 2020. So obviously I had some leave in there before. So I was kind of out of the Army, in October. And I was just looking for, like what's the next chapter of my life? Like what am I gonna do next? Um, and I think like that's something that even after spending that long in the Army, I didn't really know what I was gonna do. I've always had that feeling, from when I was growing up, looking at my grandfathers, my dad, just all the guys I was around. They always had these amazing jobs and careers. And my dad told me when I was young, he was like, if you love what you do, you never work a day in your life. So I love that about the Army. That was kind of my feeling. So the next chapter of it was, I just want to be a dad, be able to focus on my family. The average soft guy's gone 280 days a year, which I don't think most people understand that, and exactly what that means. Doesn't mean deployed the whole time, but it means you are away from your home. And even those days when you're not away, physically away from your house, I mean, it's 0430 pre-jump manifest. It's craziness, right? Like, it doesn't mean you're still actually waking up with the kids or even seeing them that day. So um that's kind of what my path was on. And then also to do something that was still uh I don't know, not to sound like a cheesy veteran, but like still live those like same values, those ethos, those war ethos that I learned in the Army. The Special Forces motto is "The oppressively bear to free the oppressed." So I wanted to do something that would continue to kind of like feed my soul, and also at the same time. I didn't have social media until I retired from the Army. So I was seeing a lot of like just trying to navigate that as a veteran, seeing what was important to people. And I was like, I think there's some good things I could do out there to be positive and show people that, like, hey, it's just because I was a Green Beret doesn't mean shit, right? Like, I'm starting over from scratch. Um, so going back to that date, in January, I did what a lot of guys do. I got offered some contract jobs, and the ones that I knew what I didn't want to do, just for my buddies that did it and or involved in certain programs. And I was fortunate enough to get on a program that was anti-human trafficking based. And this was in Africa. I can't really go too much into detail on that, but basically COVID hit, and so they were like, well, you guys are out of here. There's nothing we're doing. State Department shuts everything down, sends everybody back. So during that time, though, it was one of the most rewarding things I've ever been a part of, to really look at my mission set. And I think a lot of veterans struggle with this too, especially how Afghanistan was closed down, later on, and the things that happened. But it's like, you know, I never looked at the missions I went on and was trying to figure out if I was a good guy or the bad guy. To me, it was about the people to my right and my left. Whether they're American or Afghani or Iraqi or British or whatever, like, it was about those guys, and we just did those missions. So oftentimes, I think that veteran struggle of like telling yourself that it meant something, that like we were actually doing good. So this was completely different. You're rescuing women and children. You're physically removing them from situations, and you can see the tangible difference in what you did. Um, The other thing that kind of got me into the war party path, the other thing I saw there though was, um, yeah, you rescue people and it's all good, and then it's like, now what? Like, what's next for them? And I was not a part of that. That's not anything that the organization I was working for did. We were just, boots on the ground, remove people from situations, and then who knows where they go from that. Knowing what I know now about anti-human trafficking and learning more and being involved in this space, obviously a lot of these people just get put right back into the system, whatever the system you want to call it. Whether they're in some countries, their families can't afford them, so they sell them back, or they're who knows. There's just crazy amounts of cases and what happens with these people. All over the world, but a lot of times they're the same. They never really truly are physically removed from that or mentally removed from that. So it is easy for them to kind of fall back into those horrifying situations. So, now I'm back in the States, COVID's going on, and I'm like, dude, I want to do this for Americans, for my own people. And the other thing about that was my mother's Native, and just seeing how involved my mother and my father both were in the Native community, um, really got me kind of diving down the path of MMIW, which stands for Missing Murdered Indigenous Women. Native women are 10 times more likely than any other race to be murdered, to face physical violence. I mean, you name it. Native women are just the however you want to put it, the top of the list, or the number one kind of targeted and most vulnerable people in our population. So War Party Movement basically was just me reaching out to these families saying, hey, if nothing else, I know how to walk around with a rucksack on and do, you know, just same as recons, when you're doing search and rescue efforts, it's a lot of the same. You're using a lot of the same tactics and TTPs that we use in the Army. So that's basically how I kind of started. I just reached out to families, and, they were more than willing to accept, my hand and trying to assist them. War Party Movement grew as a way to pay for this. So I was like, dude, I didn't really know how to get some side money for this. I wanted to kind of try to tell people about it and be kind of an advocate for the Native community, exposing what was going on with them, along with just women and anti-human trafficking, and just kind of keep that vibe. So basically, War Party Movement was just a T-shirt company, and as a way to try to message and get people involved, but also represent a brand that they know that's doing good in the world. Um, on my side of it, the business side, I'm still learning. I'm still trying to grow. I still don't know what the hell I'm doing. Worst business model ever, to make a business and give all your money away. But so that's been hard to, I'm sure anybody who's a business person understands that, not being able to have a bunch of capital to put back in, or looking at things. However, it was like the coolest way I could grow, because I have so many people just wanting to buy a t-shirt, just knowing that, we had people out there doing good with that money they were spending. Um, that's really what War Party Movement started out to be. In the reason why how War Party Ranch came about was War Party Movement is an LLC. It's not a nonprofit. So I was running into problems where people, because I was doing positive in the community, a lot of people thought I was a nonprofit. So wanted to donate, wanted to be involved. How can they assist me? There was kind of two ways for that. I really leaned on the veteran community. I have a lot of really cool veterans that have been involved in training opportunities that we provide, or search and rescue efforts. And that's really what it was. It was just, I meet someone, whether it's social media or a guy with a background like mine, or infantry, it didn't matter, just a person that wanted to help. Try to vet him, get to know him if I didn't already know him, and then just let them get after it. And we've had some really cool search and rescue efforts and things we've been a part of. All those didn't always turn out positive, but just seeing the impact that in the same thing I kind of said when we started, it was like, it was really cool because I'm giving these veterans something to be a part of that's bigger than themselves, a lot like the military was, and give them a mission focused, to be able to do something and feel that impact when they're around those families. That also, like I said, that kind of conundrum, if you will, led into, and this is exactly how it happened. We assisted a young lady, get off of a pretty bad, pretty bad deal where her boyfriend was tortured and murdered in front of her. She, kind of was able to get out of that situation, ran out of the back, and basically just took off running from the res. I was contacting when she was like on the run, basically. We were able to make contact with her, find a safe house, and bring her to one. We took her to finally found a safe house in Santa Fe, New Mexico. She gets there, and this isn't a knock on these places and these nonprofits, but most of them only have beds for a certain amount of time. A lot of them are just kind of 30-day programs, or they if they're an addict or need other help or higher mental health or something in that nature, a lot of times they just don't have the resources to provide it. So this lady that we assisted, had this feel good moment. I thought we had a victory, and it was really cool. We helped her out of the situation. And then the lady that at the safe house I spoke with, she told me that the girl left, like, she called me like 2 weeks. She's like, she's gone. So, trying to track her down, see what happened. And then come to find out, later on that, she ends up overdosing from, fentanyl in, Pueblo, Colorado. So I looked at that, and that was like a pretty impactful event for me. Honestly, it set me back a lot, like emotionally. Just, you know, that one stung a lot. It was like one of those where you're like, dang, you thought you did something, and it's like, we didn't do shit, man. So War Party Ranch kind of was born out of that idea of like, hey, can we provide something that really is more of a, I guess, in a sense, an aftercare program, or even like a before care program, where we are teaching, warrior skills to ladies and trying to motivate them through kind of a warrior culture, that really represents who War Party Movement is, what natives are. I'm not with the woke crowd. I'm not with the we're victims. No, we're warriors. The greatest warriors this planet's ever seen runs through my blood, and I wanted to try to showcase that and help bring that out in these ladies, in particular the Native ladies, but just anybody who needed help. Um, and that's where War Party Ranch was born. So, really, really dear friend of mine. I call her my sister. Her name is Micah Waisaki. She's just this badass cowgirl from Colorado. Always kind of had uh, her hands in the pot when it comes to mentoring young ladies and helping them get out of situations. And a lot of that was derived from her own story, her own past, the things she had been through, whether it was as a child or, pretty bad relationship she was in as an adult. Um, just to try to mentor ladies and kind of, get them out of that funk. And her using horses and that Western lifestyle and the very gritty backbone, I think was very powerful for a lot of these ladies to progress in life, who came out of a bad deal, or were young and impressionable, and were kind of headed towards that path. So we put our heads together and looked at it. It was like, well, let's start a nonprofit and, War Party Ranch, and just try to do what we can in the community to affect these ladies and teach them some skill sets. So that's how everything started. And I don't want to, keep running my mouth forever, but that's basically how the two entities came about.
Dude, that's amazing, man. You absolutely dug into a lot of stuff that I think we can kind of break down and explain a little bit more to people too. Just because a lot of people, when they start dealing with, the nonprofit space, especially after the transition out of the military too, right? Like transitioning some of those skill sets to something, like you said, right? Like actually matters and makes a difference, and you can physically see the outcomes of. You know what I mean? Because a lot of people struggle with that. And it's not just you, it's not just me. It's a good chunk of veterans that are looking for that purpose again. And yours and my path outside of the military was very similar. You know what I mean? Like we got out, we went and tried and did some shit, and then we're kind of figuring things out as we go, right? Like I started my company getting into like the manufacturing space. It's great. It does. We make stuff. It's awesome. Um, but where I really found more purpose in was in my nonprofit space. You know what I mean? So, and I think we both kind of align with that. And I think a lot of other vets, or even first responders or anybody would really relate to that because, I mean, if dudes like you and I are right, and we're filling that void and that kind of loss of, I don't want to say like who we were, but at the end of the day, like we did run through an identity crisis leaving the military. You know what I mean? Like
Yeah,
everybody goes
absolutely.
through that. Like, who am I now? What am I gonna do now? You know what I mean? Like,
Absolutely.
what's a legacy I'm gonna leave behind, right? So like we can absolutely kind of get into some of those different things. Um, so like let's kind of jump back, right? Like you talked about, okay, you did 22 years in the military, right? Um, you had a damn good career, right? Like I've seen the pictures, you know what I mean? My boy's got more tabs than like most people dream of. So, but you said something that I say all the time too, right? Like you can always talk about what you did and it doesn't mean shit, right? It's what you're doing now. So, when you left the army and you left the military, right? Like what was that transition for you, right? Like you got out, you did some contracting, you know what I mean? Like cool, like 80% of us do that shit, right? Like it's what we know, it transition easy and it puts money into our pocket. But
Correct.
like on that side, like what was the actual transition for you like? You know what I mean? Like what was that swing point?
Mm, there's a lot of things in there that I think that led up to it. You know, some of it was, some of the things I don't necessarily want to get into career wise that, one of those things I never want to give anybody a bad name or talk bad about anything. I definitely had a very difficult transition from, I was in 3rd Special Forces Group for the majority of my career in Special Forces. And my last 3 years, I transferred to 10th Special Forces Group. That was a very difficult for me. Colorado was awesome, moving there. But, it was one of those things where I was like, I was a made man, dude. I did best ranger in 3rd group. I mean, I had multiple combat deployments. I was a senior guy, one of the senior guys on my team. I was a senior echo on a team. 3rd battalion, we racked and stacked teams, which was really awesome. And I mean, we'd have open formations where they call it the top 3 teams and the bottom 3 teams, and put people on notice. And my team was we're the motherfuckers, dude. Like 1-1 was the shit. And also the attitudes in 3rd group were a lot different. No one ever been on a J set. No one had ever done. It was just war, war, war. So when I got to 10th group, it wasn't the guys. A lot of the guys had combat deployments and stuff, but it just wasn't as many. Everyone in the hallway knew everybody. Um, in 3rd group, I mean, I might run into you and just shake your hand, like, "Hey, what's up, dude? I'm Jeremiah. I'm the senior econ 1-1." You're like, "Yeah, I'm Mark. Been here 6 years. I'm the senior Bravo one. 1
Yeah.
4, whatever, right?" Um, and I think that did kind of help me. I did have a really bad attitude. And here's an example. I had a shaving profile. I've got a bunch of crap in my face, and I had a shaving profile. So I showed up, and I was basically like an angry black dude with a beard. That's like how they treated me, and it was ridiculous, man. And my attitude just didn't resonate with those guys. They didn't, just some of that was me too, not understanding my operation environment and knowing to tone things down a little bit. But it was a pretty hard transition. And then once I got rolling, once I became a team sergeant and was doing things, I think that really helped me out. And it was a good transition point setting me up for retirement because I really had to understand, the pivot shift to understand, hey, my attitude isn't always going to be what's best for this situation. I do need to kind of try to convey that attitude in a different message, maybe. So that really helped me a lot. I had some loss, like that feeling, leaving from one group to another. When when you get out of the military, I'd even say it's probably the same for someone who only did, 3 or 4 years, like one contract, as a young adult. But especially if you did longer and you dedicated your life to it, and if I would say more than 8, 10 years, 12 years, something like that. I mean, you're really invested in what you've done and who you are as a person. So you're just loss after loss after loss, man. I mean, and people don't realize that how much that takes a toll on you as a person, because you're somebody, whether you're a tanker, you're an infantry guy, you're a Navy SEAL, like you're somebody, right? Like you belong to somebody, you belong to a team, you know, and regardless what level you serve at in the military, I don't care if you're a CAG operator or you're a general, you answer to people. Like they give you what you need to do. They give you, and it might not be, in special forces and all special operations, our left and right limits are very broad. And oftentimes, people get that misconstrued that we're not in the same Army, the same Navy, the same Marine Corps. We follow and execute orders. We have to do the exact same things that everybody else does. And I think that in itself is hard to be, not saying it's hard to be a self starter, but you always kind of get fed these little bits of this is what's next. This is what's next. They don't care how you accomplish it, but this is what's next. And this is what your task list is. When you get out, that's gone. That was one of the hardest losses for me of like, dude, what the hell do I do? You know, like I have to have a journal or a notebook to like put dates and stuff and figure out what I'm doing. And I mean, I'm kind of all over the place in that, and that military structure is difficult to once you're institutionalized in that, you know, it's definitely difficult to get away from that structure. So I think that's a hard one. The other one is, you know, just your friends, the team room, you know, the whatever it is, your squad, your platoon, like all those things go away. And one of my I heard this before, one of my favorite things somebody said is like, you know, the Army song says the Army goes rolling along. And it's because of that's true. You know, there's whoever dies, whoever fails, whoever gets fired, whoever retires, ETSs quits, it doesn't matter. The Army goes rolling along, man. And you are just a cog in the wheel. We all are, regardless of your job, whether you were a mechanic or you were, you know, an 18 Zulu, we're all a cog in the wheel, and we all are part of this giant machine that is the military. So trying to realize that and like what is next, I think is hard, and people, in my opinion, don't accept that loss as much, and really don't try to like, you know, where can I fill this empty spot in me? I definitely struggle with identity, you know, for sure, like what was going to be next for me. Fortunately, the way I was raised and the things I was around was something I always knew I wanted to get back to, and that was, you know, my grandpa was a badass cowboy, and my dad was a rancher when I was a kid, and something I knew I wanted to do, and I knew that like horses, like horse medicine, is so special, and I wanted to get back into kind of reinventing myself and what is next, who am I now, and yeah, I was a Green Beret, but like, you know, I wanted something to challenge myself, and I use the term cowboy loosely. You know, I'm still learning. I've been doing it since I retired. You know, 4 years ago. I'm still I would call myself a cowboy in the way I carry myself, the way you know, I'm tough, I'm gritty, I'm respectful. Those common traits that people think about when they think of a cowboy. But, you know, this is also a lifelong journey, you know, and these guys that do this for a living, you know, they've been doing it since they were, you know, kids, and they're so good at it. Um, my favorite thing about it is just starting over from scratch, you know, just being the new guy, just being quiet. Yes, sir. No, sir. Yes, ma'am. No, ma'am. And doing what I'm told and executing those tasks. And then, you know, practicing on my own, whether it's roping, my horsemanship, all those things. And it's really given me another kind of journey on who I am and challenging myself, as well as um, what I am, you know. I think that is important. Um, and it all goes back to, you know, I'm a dad first. So trying to, you know, set the example, do what's right, have fun with my kids, have fun with my family, you know, do things I wasn't able to do with my older kids. Now I have the opportunity to do them with my younger kids. And fortunately, you know, my kids love it too. They love that, you know, being outside, being on horses, being, you know, doing all that. So that's just basically a really cool avenue for me. That's been, you know, I'm never working a day in my life, you know, even if it's hard work and it sucks. I mean, I'm still having fun, you know, no matter what I'm doing. Definitely a blessing. And every time I, you know, kick my leg over a horse and my right foot gets in that stirrup, you know, I feel like I rewound time like 200 years. So that has been huge for me, you know, mentally, my mental health wise. Um, to be able to like have something, have a passion, and really, you know, multiple passions, but really kind of be able to recreate myself and have an identity. Um, that's been really cool, and that's been a blessing for sure.
Dude, that's awesome, man. Like, and you brought up so many things in there too, right? Like, you're always bringing up all these crazy like points that I want to jump on, but I don't want to interrupt. You know
No,
what I
no
mean?
worries.
Like, and it was like,
Yes, no, stop me.
dude,
I'll talk for 45
yeah,
minutes.
bro. Like, I got that TBI brain too. You know what I mean? Like, I'll just keep
Yeah,
going, and then
same.
all of a sudden, I'm like, oh shit, what was I talking about?
Yes,
Oh
yes.
well. But no, man, it's like you brought up too, like your identity crisis and that personal transformation for you too, but then really just like recapping, like at the end of the day you're getting the opportunity with your kids. So for me, right, like my transition kind of went through, like I got meted out at 15. You know what I mean? Like, and I to be honest, like I was pissed about it, dude. Like I was mad. Um, like I at the time I was an E7 and I was filling an OpStar major slot. You know what I mean? Like, dude, and I was just like, I got this, right? Um, but man, I did, right? Like I went in and I sought mental health help and that was it for me. You know what I mean? Like, cause I was sitting there and I was having panic attacks in my shower and I was starting to run into some of those issues. And I'm like, hey, like, look, dude, like I need help. I talked to one of my mentors about it, and like he's like, "Yo, dude, like you're gonna go do this." You know what I mean? Like we've all been there, we get it. You know what I mean? Like you got how many years overseas? I'm like, right. You know, like let's keep going and let's go get you to go do this. So I went and did it. Um, and then obviously with like other issues too, right? Like my back's jacked up. You know what I mean? Like all the other aches and pains after a career, right? Like it's like, oh well, you've got this, this, and this. I think your service is done, man. And it just transitioned that way. But like I felt like I got robbed in a sense of it. You know what I mean?
Mhm.
And I was I was frustrated about it and I had a lot of angst about it. But I will say this, at the end of the day, it was the best thing I ever could have done for me at that time. You know what I mean? Because I see it now, right? Like I've got primary custody of my eldest son. You know what I mean? Like I just had another son, you know what I mean? Like it's 4 months. And I'm getting all of that I didn't get, you know what I mean, with my older son. And those boys are watching what you do through that transition and how you build your life and how you set those things up to, you know, to be men and be respectful and learn what it is to be a man in this world nowadays because the demographics of the world have changed. You know what I mean? But at the end of the day, the principle of being a man has not changed, right?
Yeah,
And
absolutely.
you know, teaching them those values and you know the respect and how to speak to people and how to react and how to do all those things is just so crucial. And I'm getting the opportunity to really do that with my son through his teenage years and then obviously my youngest. So like I'm super grateful for it. Um and like absolutely humbled by the fact that I get to do that now. You know,
Yeah,
like
absolutely.
my first son was he was 4 months when you know I deployed when he was 4 months. I came back and he was you know a year and a half and walking, right? Like, and I'm like, okay, like cool. You know, we adjusted to that and we figured that out. And then, you know, like a year later, boom, I was gone again. 2 years after that, boom, I was gone again. You know, a year after that, boom, I was gone again. And it's like, and then obviously like the training cycles between it all, you know, and it's a lot, man, and it takes time away from them that they never get back. So and like he always gives me shit. He's like, yeah, Dad, you're always just abandoning me and leaving me. You know what I mean? Like, and he does it jokingly now.
Right.
You know what I mean? Because he's a 14-year-old and he's a smartass. He is my kid, so I guess I you know that's payback for me. But you know, and it's just one of those things, man. Like I'm so glad I get that and get that time back. And I'll tell you one of the hardest things, I don't know, it just popped in my head, right? TBI brain. But it was on my 2015 trip that we went back to Baghdad, right? So we were with that like whole group that went back to Baghdad. There wasn't very many. I think there was like 120 of us, and then like SOC. That was it. That was on, you know, that was in Bayat.
I was in
So
Iraq in 2015 as well.
oh no shit. All right, then we were literally probably sitting there staring at each other at a certain point.
Mhm.
So you know what I mean, like, and dude, like right before that trip, I left right after Christmas, right? So I think I left like January 3rd or some shit like that. You know what I mean? Um, but my son, he was 5 years old and he went and asked for, he's like, I want an army, a truck, and a doctor kit. Right? Like that's what he wanted for Christmas. Obviously, that's 5-year-old speaking, right? He wanted an
Right.
army uniform. You know what I mean? He wanted,
Yeah.
you know, like a doctor like thing, and he wanted a driving truck. You know what I mean? Like because he thought it was cool as shit. So naturally, like I'm leaving, so he got everything he wanted. You know what I mean? Like I spoiled the shit out of him because I was about to leave again. Um, and the thing he was most excited about, right, wasn't the, you know, whatever like Ford Raptor, you know, like drivable truck that I had in there that I had one of my boys like custom paint like flames on it and shit. You know what I mean? It wasn't, you know, his, you know, like tricked out little doctor kid. It was his army uniform. And I swear, man, like it just brought me to tears immediately that Christmas morning as he opened it. And then he runs to his room and he goes and puts it on because he knew I was leaving. And he's like, look, Dad, now I can go with you. You don't have to leave again. And I'll tell you what, man, like that broke me right there. And dude, it was so difficult. And now, You know what I mean? Like I think about stuff like that and I realize that now I get that time back with him. You know what I mean? And I get that. And like I'm at every sporting event. I'm at, every, he's in so many like after school activities, it's ridiculous. But I'm there for all of them and I get that time to do it. And like you talked about it too, like those 0-4 wake ups. So I got to get in. I got, we've got all these other different things to do. You know what I mean? Like you're manifesting that day. That sucks, dude. You're there for 12 hours. Like, welcome to the Thunderdome, boys. Here it goes. Um, but like getting that breakfast with your kids.
Yeah, no,
Like
for
that
sure.
was, dude, that was one of the biggest things that like I like to do now. Like every day, like I make breakfast. Like damn. So like every day, like I get up and I make breakfast for the family and I go do that stuff just because like I wasn't ever able to do that. You know what I mean? And to take the kids to school and like to go do that stuff because you missed out on it. You know what I mean? So like there's those pros and those cons to it. You know what I mean? Like I wouldn't change my career to for anything. You know what I mean? Like I loved it. I was great at it. You know what I mean? Like, and it's just something that I thoroughly enjoyed doing and learning and experiencing. But through my transition, I learned of the things that I did miss and that I can not make up for, you know what I mean? Because I don't think you can ever make up lost time, but I can put more effort to and more emphasis to.
Yeah, I think it's for me, that just looking at it from like a 10,000 foot view, um, the obviously the families don't get enough credit when we talk about what it takes to make somebody, and if you're a single guy and you're regardless what level you're operating at, it's a lot different for you. You don't doesn't really matter. As you get older, I have buddies that are in their 40s, they're single, not married, no kids, and their career was who they're married to, and they you know never found the right person that kind of matched their lifestyle. If you are when you do have a family, and it's the family sacrifices as well. No one talks about that. What it really takes to make what does it take to make a good Green Beret? Well, if he's married and he's got kids, that family is going through a lot. And or infantryman or a tanker. I don't mean to just throw my MOS out there, but it takes a lot for these families. The one thing that I say that, fortunately, the way I grew up, the way I was raised, a lot of that has to do with being a native as well, but just warrior culture, just warrior shit. So my kids, yeah, there's some obviously time loss issues there, but at the same time, I mean, we've always kind of made it very open. It's like, hey, this is what we do. We're a warrior culture, warring class, and that cycle of dads leaving, kids staying, kids becoming the dad, is the cycle of time. That's history. That happened all over the world, whether you're a Mongol, a Viking, a Cossack, an Apache, like whatever. That has been there. And the sad part about it is in the modern society, especially in the West, we have gotten kinder, gentler. We've gotten away from that warrior shit, and we're to blame for it. One of my favorite things that people say all the time is like everyone gets a trophy. Every kid gets a trophy, and I'm like, bullshit. Adults get a trophy. If you run a fucking Tough Mudder or a Spartan race or do some bullshit 5K, you get a fucking medal, and now you're wearing it around. You didn't win shit. I never grew up that way. I still ain't that way. If I don't fucking win it, I don't fucking want it. Like I'm not taking home your you know. And I think that like there's probably some discipline and stuff that our parents did that we thought was a little harsh. But if you think about it with your 10-year-old brain, you're gonna think it's harsh. If you think about it with your 35-year-old dad brain, it's not harsh, and sometimes it's exactly what those kids need. So I look at that as just like if you're able to embrace that as a family, and really like now you have your son that's 14, he sees those things, he gets it more, he understands you were gone, but there's a lot of grace and compassion that comes from those kids to know that like that was my dad's job. They're proud of you for doing that. That they're proud of their mom and their dad for serving and doing that, and oftentimes that's why you see um, people that serve at a pretty high level. Whether you're a helicopter pilot or you're an admin clerk and you did it for 25 years. A lot of times those kids go in the military as well, because they understood what that sacrifice and that service was about. So I really try to lean into that warrior culture with my own children, war party. I mean, that's what we're all about. Is like, I don't want to hear no woke shit, no baby shit, no victim shit. Um, so I think it's definitely a struggle, and I think it's easier to beat yourself up as a veteran, as the dad, as the adult, and kind of have a lot of shame and a lot of guilt in that. But the reality is like, those kids are proud of you for what you did, and the reason, you know who they are as a young adult is has a lot to do with your ability to push through, and all these perseverance and the things that they did as kids, as well as having to deal with that. They'll remember those things the rest of their life, putting you on green ramp, receiving you from green ramp, those kind of things, or, talking to you on Zoom or whatever, or phone calls. And I was old, so my oldest daughter, man, I mean, I wrote her letters, and, didn't get a lot of time, and maybe talked to her, a couple times a year on those real long deployments. And, so it's gotten better, through the years of how technology's obviously helped. I think it's hindered a lot too. I think there's a lot of guys who spend too much time up mama's ass and what's going on at home. But there's a way to balance that, and really show those kids, that 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 they were part of that sacrifice. And I think when you open up and you talk about that more, I think that really helps out I think it helps the adults more than it helps the kids, to be honest. The
Dude,
kids
I
already
I
know.
agree, man.
Kids already know.
I totally agree. Like my son's mentality, and like his mental strength is so strong. You know what I mean? And I'm
Yeah.
fourth generation too, right? Like you're 100% right. Like I'm fourth generation. Everybody in my family has served. You know what I mean? It's just been what Messinas do, right? Like that's
Right.
just who we are. You know what I mean? Like my old man was a green hatter. He told me every day throughout my entire career, is like, when are you gonna go get a real job? You know what I mean? Like that's just
Yeah.
how he was, right? Like so you're 100% right, man. Like I grew up in that family dynamic, you know what I mean, and so forth too, and I get it, and it's just one of those things that where like I took and I learned from transition of like I'm grateful for now,
Yeah.
you know.
Absolutely.
So but I agree, man. I wouldn't change anything for that with my son, you know what I mean, and because he learned so much in that time period with like resiliency and like school change and doing all those different things, man. Like Jesus, dude, the kid's lived in like 5 or 6 different states. You know what I mean? Like he's gone through more schools than anybody, and
Yeah.
it builds something within those kids too that makes them better humans. You know what I mean? That builds that strength for them getting out into the real world and understanding that change happens and life happens, and we don't come from that soft house mentality of like it's okay to whatever BS back and forth. So no, dude, I 100% agree with you with that shit.
Yeah. I
So
think it makes them grow up fast. I think
yeah,
like I said, I mean, I'm 44 years old, and I grew up in the 80s and the 90s, and I think a lot of people who grew up, in that time, or even, in the 90s, this is a different time, different thing. And I think a lot of these kids don't have that same freedom of movement, that same, just the things that we had to do on our own, and take care of ourselves, and do things, and kind of grow up fast. And it seems to me like military kids are still kind of the only kids, hanging around that have to do that. Um, I'm not saying it doesn't, other families and kids don't have to do that, but obviously in the military, families, that those kids for sure are having to grow up fast, and especially, um, learn how to navigate life, with basically a single parent,
yeah,
and one of them coming and going, whether that's mom or dad or whatever the case is.
yeah. Or hell, dude, sometimes both, man.
Yeah,
Like
absolutely.
those dual military families, dude.
Mhm.
Bro, that is a whole different ball game. So I mean, dude, that's a lot of good transition and kind of running through those different things. Um, you know what I mean? Like obviously we both represent nonprofit organizations, and that's a big reason why we get on and we do these podcasts and we do these things, right? So obviously I gotta go in and I gotta plug in QRF up, right? Um, so I know a lot of y'all know this, but just a quick backstory. It's a mobile application for veterans and first responders for that immediate crisis line, right? Everybody talks about veteran suicide nowadays, right? But nobody really knows and understands what that really like demographic and dynamic is outside of the military. So I always like to, one, get a perspective from you, but then kind of give my perspective of it as well too. You know what I mean? From what I've learned throughout the organization. Um, So like I think a big piece of that is understanding where the stats actually come from, so people really get that grip to it, right? So like currently there's 19.1 million veterans in the United States, right? So that's a pretty large number on that, right? Like obviously like GWAT really ramped that up. And you get to see, a lot of those effects, right? But when it comes to actual statistical data that comes out of it, right, they're claiming the 22 a day number, right? Like everybody hears the 22 a day bullshit. Um, that number came back out in 2012, right? It's not true today, but everybody still kind of thinks it is and runs off those numbers. It's really in the 30s and 40s, right? Because and here's why, right? Like they're stating that, oh, we've gone down to 19 a day based on the VA because they're putting that numbers out. But there's only 9.1 million veterans being tracked by the VA, right? So they're already off by almost 60%. All right, for just who they're tracking. Furthermore, if it goes into any type of like opioid overdose or alcohol related vehicle incident or an alcohol related incident, and it's not like a what they would consider a violent suicide, right? They don't label it as being a suicide. Now, I see that kind of as a dual hat type thing, right? Because one, I think they're trying to protect family benefits. You know what I mean? And I think they're trying to help in that aspect. But two, they're also not reporting the data appropriately. You know what I mean? So, and then if you talk about any like the homelessness aspects of it too, if they go out and they're out and they're homeless and they're, reported as John Doe, they're not pulled in. So, what I mean? Like there is a major gap in that. You know what I mean? And it's consistent where right now that 1% of the population, right, is consistent of veterans and first responders. All right. But yet they make up almost 33% of the national suicide rate. And that's without having majority of it tracked in those systems. So one of the major missions that our nonprofit is doing, right, is getting a specific application for those demographics and putting it in their hands. And then we're nationwide launching by May of this year. So it's going to every state, but just because we hit that time frame doesn't mean it's going to be in your state yet, because we need to recruit responders and we need to recruit therapists, we need to recruit all the backside support to make that stuff happen. You know what I mean? So I wanted to give a little bit of backside of like, hey, like this is what, current media is saying, you know what I mean? Like, and I quote that shit out, but this is what it's saying and this is what we're trying to do about it. Like, what's your take on, where we stand as, a country or, a community, within the veteran community with suicide, and like what are your opinions and takes on it?
Man, so I'll say this by before I go down this hole, talking about it. Um, when I was in for 22 years in the army, I lost, and these are like, you know, directly knew them, worked for them, worked under me, worked, same platoon, same company, whatever. 11 friends, 11 people in combat were killed in action um, in my 22 years. And I've been retired since January of 2020. And I honestly, uh, I'm not gonna say I stopped counting. I'm not gonna throw the exact number out there. It's in the high 30s of people I know, served with, that committed suicide. While I was in the army, I had some pretty significant suicides. Three that I know for sure, like guys that that were like, what the fuck. One of the biggest ones for me was Tim Hankins from Third Special Forces Group. Phenomenal team sergeant. Uh, the happiest guy I've ever met, man. Most lively, upbeat, badass, freaking dude, man. He's 18 Zulu of 3333, and he committed suicide. And it was like Tim Hankins committed suicide, and that was like one of the first ones that really hit me, where I was like, dude, what in the hell is going on? And that was, about 2 years or 3 years, about 2 or 3 years before I retired. Um, and then now looking at it, and the guy that replaced me when I retired, I mean, he committed suicide like 6 months after, he replaced me, and it's pretty crazy. So that I just put that out there to be like, yeah, I've definitely been affected by it personally. Um, And the way I look at it is there's a couple things going on in the veteran, period. We're just now starting to understand. When I say just now, yes, the soft community, special operations, really started taking a look at brain trauma and TBIs around, 2011, 2012. 2013 started making us wear those little things on our helmets, little flat, the little, do you remember that? The little, if an
Yep.
explosion went off or whatever. But the problem was like we'd go to the range and they'd go off. It's like, well, this
Yep.
is stupid. We thought it was stupid at the time because they're going off at the range, but the reality of it is yeah, they're going off at the range, bro. Like you have a concussion, running the 60, running mortars, running 120, shooting Carl Gustav, shooting heavy machine guns, all those things, breaching, all the things that we did, despite just a head trauma, whacking your head on a jump or whatever. I think we looked at it completely different before then. Was like, if you weren't knocked out, like that's not a concussion. So you add all that brain trauma to it. You add what we're trying to understand now. Now you fast forward to 2025. I mean, they still don't know a lot, but they do know that, CTE and all these things do cause depression. There's a lot of, what happens physically to you. So I think understanding that is very important as a veteran. You need to understand what's going on in your brain. And I tell people this all the time. I'm around a lot of cowboys who have a ton of brain injuries, and their agriculture is the second highest, suicide community in our country. Also, the 1%, which is a lot of that leads into head trauma. It's there's other things, debt and blah blah and all the things, but a lot of that's head trauma, and it really does. You really do have a broken brain. And sometimes, as amazing as my life is, my wife, my family, my friend, the things I have going on. I mean, there's days, dude, when I'm like, why the fuck am I sad? And I am a sack of shit right now. And I literally have to tell myself, like, dude, you have a broken brain. Like, it's not you. It's just the mood you're in right now. And I think with the veterans, especially with the guys who were guys and gals that were in direct combat, did a lot of you know time sensitive targets, whether you were a pilot, a crew chief, whatever. There's those things where you're just like, you get a mission, you receive the mission, it's execute, you're rehearsed, you're ready to go, and you're out the door, in a matter of minutes. And I think that also leads to this really crazy, like, you're just spontaneous, and then you're chasing this thrill, you're chasing this adventure that does not match a firefight, does not match jumping out of airplanes, doesn't match anything you've done. And now it's like, yeah, guys go 170 miles an hour on their motorcycle and they do this, or they, like they want to ride bucking horses or whatever, because guys are trying to feel that same like level of, I would say, like, dumb it down, like that level of badassery, like, dude, I'm a 44-year-old shitty dad cowboy, like I got to do something that's fun and cool, and kind of keeps me on that same level. Um, so I think that just when you combine, that lack of that thrill and excitement, your brain's broken, you're super spontaneous. I actually think a lot of my friends that have killed themselves probably just like were like, you know what, fuck it. Like they were up at night a little late, drinking some booze, whatever, and maybe no booze, doesn't matter. And they're just like, you know what, my family's better off without me. I did this, I'm a failure, or whatever rabbit hole they go into. And they're just like, I'll just do it, and they just fucking do it. And I literally think it's because their brain's broken. And if they could like take time out and move to another one, and maybe, like your program could have up like, hey, just sometimes just talking to somebody or whatever, right? Um, the other big factor I think that is the cause of veteran suicide is, and I don't want this to come out the wrong way with certain people, but there's two things in that. One is faith, and I'm going to come back to faith in a second. The other one is most people aren't warriors. They joined for a reason, whether that reason was to fight for their country, whether that reason was to get college money. Um, I would guess the population of people who are actually warriors that were like, this is what I do, this is who I am, this is who my grandfathers were, this is who my dad was, or whatever, or just, you know what, I want to be different from my pussy ass family. I'm going to fucking war for my country. I think a lot of those guys, because I struggled with it for a long time. My mother would tell us, we were kids, the words say it before they went to battle, that today's a good day to die. And I think for a lot of times, I thought the best way to honor my family was to die in combat. I didn't try to die. I wasn't reckless, but wasn't fucking scared of it. And I think it didn't happen. And then it's like, well, shit. What do I do next? I didn't think I was gonna be 30. I didn't think I was gonna be 40 when I was 30. You're gonna be 40. I'm like, fuck no, I'm gonna be 30. I'm going on like
No,
I'm
facts,
dying
dude.
some helicopter crash or like a gunfight or something. Just looking at the stats and the reality of things, it was like, um, so I think that because people weren't raised in this warrior society where death and turmoil and those things are abundant and around you, it is very easy if you're not a warrior to really get consumed in survivor's guilt and not understanding, and I try to say this all the time to people. The first stance of the Ranger Creed is recognizing I volunteered as a Ranger, fully knowing the hazards of my chosen profession. That means I volunteered knowing what I was doing. My friends that died in combat died doing what they fucking loved. It's what the Creator put them on the earth to do, to be warriors. It was their calling. They died next to people they loved, to their left and their right. And I am not going to dishonor them by being fucking all pussified and worried about it and this should have. No, dude, they were fucking warriors, man. And I try to push that spirit of camaraderie, that same feeling you had. And the other thing is, if you could talk to those guys, you could talk to one of your buddies, you know what they're gonna do? The same dark humor, talking shit that they always did. They're gonna be like, "You fucking pussy, are you crying because I got fucking blown up?" And it's so hard to pull out of that and think about those things. I understand, and I'm not trying to be like I got the answers. Um, so I think I'm trying to kind of prep the situation here. The other one for me, I think, is faith. Um, I'm a Christian. I believe in God, the Creator. And I was always raised that way as a kid. And my faith as a native, my mother being Apache, um, I think really helped. And there's something that I'll share with people, like a tangible way that I can. I've always learned. My whole life we did it doing ceremony. Um, but we, my mother always said that you have to you always have to be thankful for what you have, and that you need to, if you take something, you need to give something. So we always carry tobacco. Tobacco is a big thing for natives, and it's just something as simple as, like, if my daughter sees a cool rock, she'll, like, and let's say you dip, she'll run up to you and be like, "Give me some dip," and you're like, "What?" If she's, when she's like 4, and you're like, "Oh, I'm like, just give her a pinch of dip, dude." She needs some tobacco. She's gonna go over there and put that rock. She's gonna thank the Creator. She's gonna pray. She's gonna put tobacco down where she took that rock as a tangible way of saying, like, thank you for this. So oftentimes what I tell people is, like, if you're feeling a bad day or struggling, or sometimes you just need it, get out in nature, get outside, connect with the Creator. Most people are 100% so separated from what the Creator made for us, meaning, and whoever's listening to this, you're gonna laugh at this. I guarantee you're probably not wearing one piece of fabric on your body that's natural. Okay, I try to do a good job of that. I wear silk and wool and bamboo and cotton, and I try to take that in. It sounds silly, sounds hippie, but it's true. You're probably wearing plastic fucking underwear and plastic pants and a shitty shirt, and you know, you're never connected. So get outside, whatever that is. I'm fortunate enough that I have access to a lot of land in a lot of different country. But I tell you about, I go out by myself, and I just find me a cool spot, and whether I hand roll a cigarette or smoke a joint or whatever I'm doing, I just have it out with the Creator, and I talk to Jesus about it. I cry it out if I need to. I do what I got to do, and I physically take that tobacco and I'll place it, or I'll tie it to a tree, and that's a physical, tangible way for me to take those burdens and things that are bothering me or things that are eating at me, and give them to the Creator, give them to God. I don't need to carry those around. They don't need to be in my rucksack. Rucksack doesn't mean to be heavy as shit, full of burdens that don't need to be carried around. And that is a way for me that's been very healing, and something that, like, is this kind of a ceremony thing that I can do with myself. um, and I think when we talk about faith and all these different aspects of stuff, people get very misconstrued in, like, what Western Christianity is, and the church, and the hypocrisy and all. I don't, I want to go down that road, but um, it's not about any of those things. It's about you and the Creator. It's about you, and it's okay to, as a man, I think it's okay. I don't think it's okay to be emotional. I don't think it's okay to not to be okay and cry out. Fuck that. You're a fucking man. I don't think any of that's okay. I think it's okay to do that on your own. I think it's okay to do that with your wife. I think that's okay to do that with certain people in certain times, but it's not for everybody. It's not to be on podcasts crying. It's not to be fucking, spilling your guts and trying to, well, look at me, look at this victim or attention seeking. It's so convoluted now. Men are fucking men. You're a man. Your son doesn't need to see that shit. Your daughter doesn't need to see that shit. What they need to see is you being a warrior and carrying the weight of that. Your friends died for a reason. Don't fucking turn into a pussy now over what your friends did. And that's a hard way. A lot of people don't like my fucking way of life, the way I do it. But I think you need to have some privacy, some ceremony. You need to find that church, go to the mountains, go to the woods. That has been the biggest thing for me, is being able to be in nature, surround myself with the creator wants me to be around. It all the science behind it, and there's you can go down the science rabbit hole for being outdoors in nature and grounding yourself. Like I said, when's the last time you took off your shoes and you walked around and shit, I don't know what I just did. Am I still here? Oh, I pushed the button.
Yeah, you're good.
Last time you took off your shoes and were just in the grass or outside or at the beach or any of those things in an environment that isn't related to partying with your friends, drinking alcohol, something else going on, right? I'm not saying we're going to go to the beach, and those are fun. You go to the beach, hang out with your friends, go surfing, whatever, drink some beers. That's going to be a little bit of a reset, but that's not going to be that spiritual reset, that unloading of the burdens that you're carrying around. And the reality is, when you're around your friends, you're having a good time. We go cowboying, we go hunting, we go fishing, whatever it is you like doing. It's not the time. Men need other men to do warrior shit together. Tonight, when I go to fucking wrestling practice, I'm not going to talk to my coach about fucking bullshit. I'm going to fucking wrestle. And the conversation we have, we're going to enjoy each other company as men. And it's time to be happy. It's not time to be sad. And that to me is what's hard about talking about your feelings or talking about what's going on, is because there's really no right way to interject this. And you really do need to have some confidants and people that you can confide in that way. But also, my biggest thing is faith. The number one person you need to confide in is the creator, and need to find that, and connecting yourself to what he has made and what he has given you is going to connect you to that.
Dude, that's awesome, man. So like, and here's what I took from it, Red, is that's where you find your balance, right? Like you find balance in yourself with connecting in that way. You know what I mean? Like mine is, I go out and, dude, I ride my motorcycle by myself all the
Yeah.
time, right? Like I'm up in, dude, I got lost. Like this is a couple months ago, right? Like I was just out riding, and like I had the weekend to myself. My son was over at his aunt's, and like the whole thing. I'm like, all right, cool. So I'm on a motorcycle ride. Like 8 hours into this motorcycle ride, also I'm like, oh shit, I'm in North Carolina. You know what I mean? Like I live in Georgia. You know what I'm saying? So yeah, it's not that far, but like I'm up in like the mountains of North Carolina. You know what I mean? Like I'll probably Warrior Forest and shit. So I'm like, shit, dude, I gotta turn around. You know what I mean? But I took that moment. Like I went and hit a couple waterfalls. I went and just went out there and just spent that time doing it, man. And like you gotta find what works for you. You know what I mean? Like
Absolutely.
me, mine's getting out and riding motorcycles, and I like to do it by myself. Like that's that time where I get that wind therapy. You talk about horse therapy. I do wind therapy.
Yeah.
It's my thing. You know what I mean? Like
I
you get
think you
out
got
there
to
and
do
then
things.
you
Like I said, it's not, mine is an example. I do think you need to do things by yourself. I do think, you know, you got to you got to be okay with being alone. And if you're not okay with being alone, you're not going to heal, because you can't be surround yourself and be so busy and occupied. And back to the spontaneousness of why guys commit suicide. I do think that there's a lot of stressors in life, the kids, the wife, the whatever, the job, this, that, and the other. I'm not who I was. There's all these stressors. And sometimes you can fill that void with just being busy. But when you're alone, to me, I think that is, looking back on some guys I know, I do think that's probably what happened to them. They were just not okay with being alone, and I think you do need to find that commonality with yourself, in doing that. Um, I wrote, I try to, like, I write a little bit. I write most, to be honest, this is funny. This is like, and I kind of like, I put it out the other day on social media. Most of the time that I write stuff, I'm really rapping. I love hip hop, real hip hop, like from the '90s.
yeah.
But I I rap a lot, make up stupid rap lyrics to the songs I hear, and I always love cowboy poetry and those kind of things. So I try to write a lot. And I wrote a story called The Silence. It's just a short story, but it basically is about it's real. It's a real, just recalling a mission. And basically what it is um, just that feeling you get that I used to get in this scenario is, we're flying out on an op. I've got, a Chinook full of helicopter, or a Chinook full of commandos. It's me and, one other guy that's, main effort or SE1 or SE2 on our lift. And we're flying in. And once that helicopter leaves and you're in that security halt, you're offset, you've got, 6, 7, 8 click movement or whatever you got to do, but you land and you're in bad guy country at this point, And as the rotors go away and that sound just kind of dissipates, that whoomp of the rotors, there is that time, and I call it the silence, where it's just utter silence, where there's, a minute or two goes by before anybody moves. We're conducting SEALs. You're doing it, going, I'm not going to go through all the procedures everybody goes through, but you're in that security halt, that cigar shaped deal, and you're just sitting there and you're on a knee. And for me being in charge of all those guys, I'm facing in, looking at them, and that was that feeling to me, that silence of all alone, unafraid, nothing matters. It's Monday. Who cares? You don't think about you don't think about you don't think about anything. Your mind is just so, to me, that is the point, the place where my mind was so connected to the creator and like a weird flow state in that silence and just enjoying that silence. And I think that resonates with a lot of people. And now I'm trying to show, like, I want to talk about more and be in, like, how can I have that same silence when I'm not in the Army? My kids give me that. Joyful moments give me that. Now I'm able to pull back a little bit and understand that same feeling, that creator, and that same feeling I got with when it's just pure, just zero sound at all besides the little buzz from your Peltors, or whatever it is. I mean, that's just something I think that for me, that's a tangible story I could share with people that really understand that. And now it's about just chasing that feeling, what feels that? What gives me that same type of joy, or that same, I'm not going to say it's joy, that same like calming feeling where I'm almost numb, but like, it's hard to explain. But I think that, without me putting it into words, and I don't really know how to ball it up in words, but I think that is something that, like, in the next chapter of life, you've got to be able to feel, surround yourself with things that can give you that same type of feeling at moments. And for me, like I said, I'm fortunate, sometimes I get that exact same feeling when I'm sitting on a horse on top of a ridge, looking at a bunch of cows I'm about to move, or just sitting there, and I look over a mile away across the valley and there's another cowboy sitting there, and it just, I mean, I get that same feeling, so I think just trying to mimic those things. And I think it's okay. It's okay to replace feelings, and it's okay to try to chase the same thing and chase adventure. And I think that is a big part of veterans as well, is you can get wrapped up in just being a dad and like family and this, but men need men. You've got to take the buddy trips with your boys. You got to go hunting. You got to go fishing. You got to go ride your motorcycles. You got to do all the man shit. And anybody who's listening, men, husbands, wives, like, you got to let them do that. Same with your wife. If she is a warrior and she went through those same things, or she needs some of that same time. And it might not be, it's not the girl time you're thinking. It's very similar to what you want to do for adventure and what you like to do. And you don't have to do it together, but sometimes we just need to understand that, like, men need men. We need to surround ourselves with other warriors and continue to, you're not going to shut it off. And my analogy to why is, if you get a dog, you get a pit bull, this badass pit bull, and you teach it to fight, and all it does is fight other dogs, right? Its whole life. And now this thing is, it's a little old, a little slower than it used to be. You don't want to get killed. Like, it can't fight as well as it can, but it can still fight. Now it's retired. He's 8 years old. You can't take him to the dog park. Like, the dog's just not going to shut it off and just be different. It's not just going to be like, oh, I'm good now. I'm retired from fighting. It's this exact same thing. You are going to be hyper vigilant, hyper aware. Certain scenarios are going to trigger things in you, certain smells are going to trigger things in you. And you have got to be able to assess those and move through those. But those are never going to go away. And to me, in my opinion, as long as you understand that psyche about yourself, they're like, you know what, that's just who I am. You know, I'm gonna try to control it. I do. You know, for me, martial arts, my whole life has been a huge outlet for that. Like I said, you know, I try to go to. I train at Factory X MMA. Super blessed. I mean, every one of my coaches is in UFC, and I get to go bang and wrestle and do shit and you know, I'm the nicest guy driving home from kickboxing or you know or from wrestling practice. You know, like people cut me off or just wave or whatever. You know. Uh, I missed a couple days, and you'll probably get some fucking harsh language and some cool sign language thrown your way. But it's hard. I just think it's never gonna fucking be easy. It's never gonna be. It's never going to not go away. And the softer our society has gotten, the more victimhood we've gotten in our society, and the more, you know, oh, fighting's bad and this and that, and the more pussified everything's gotten, the harder it is for you to feel normal. But the reality is, it's okay to be your grandpa. The dudes who stormed Iwo Jima and hit Omaha Beach and those guys, they coped in a different way because they were men, and men needed men, and they continue to be men throughout. And that suicide rate of the World War II veterans is like 3% when ours is at like 33%. The other thing, I'll go back to faith. When you look at Christianity in our country, the decline of Christianity goes like this, and the rise of suicide goes like this in men in general in our country, not just veterans.
Yep.
So I really look at it as like, you got to find God, you got to find a purpose, you got to find an outlet, and it's okay to be angry and to be upset, and all those things are okay. So when people say it's okay to not be okay, that's what I think it is. But that version of, you know, the whiny cry victim shit, that's not okay. You're a
Dude,
warrior.
100% agree.
You're a warrior. Be a warrior, and chase those adventures, man. Try to fill some of those voids and those gaps. And I'm in the really cool opportunity now, you know, like you, and so many other guys that are you know, in their 40s and getting older, late 30s and 40s, that have kids. And the older your kids get, man, they start hitting that age where you can do so many things with them, and it's so fun. And that's just been a blessing in itself, you know, that you don't have to shut that off. And those are things you can do with your kids. You know, if you like shooting, teach your kids to shoot, teach your kids to fight, do all those things, raise fucking warriors. You don't shut it off. It's who you are. It's a part of you. And you know, so I think that's a big one. Understanding, like, you're not just gonna, that training's not gonna go away. That those feelings, those emotions, that hypervigilance, the chasing that silence, it's not going anywhere. It's okay to accept it and embrace it, and use it as kind of reinventing yourself, like we talked about. It's part of you. It has to be a part of your story. It has to be in there. It's, you know.
So I think people too need to understand, right? And you brought up some, I mean, dude, just spot on points. Like I feel better after talking with you, right? Like fucking, it's like, dude, I fucking needed that. You know what I mean? Like I needed somebody to tell me to stop being a pussy. You know what I mean? Because we all get stuck in those moments too. You know what I mean? It's like, damn, okay, fuck, right? Like I got to get myself back on track with certain things too. But I think, dude, like you guys need to understand what your new normal is, right? And I say new normal because like every trip you've been on, you know what I mean? It changed you in a different way,
Mhm.
good, bad, and indifferent. It doesn't matter, right? Like you came home a little different every time. You know what I mean? And it took a toll on you to a certain point, right? But it also gave you something back, right? Because everything that, you know, as soon as something's taken, something has to be replaced at the same time. That's balance. It has to be that way. So getting to the point with that is like you have to learn who you are. You know what I mean? And whether, you know, you're working through that with, you know, in different disciplines of faith, however you want to do it, or if you're doing it, you know, through some other type of spiritual guidance, you're doing it through, you know what I mean, like riding horseback, it doesn't matter. But you have to find that space to figure out what your new normal is, and you have to come to terms with who you are. And
Absolutely.
dude, like you say it all the time, right? And this is something we bring up here, you know, at the company and at all the other shit, like Like, we are the warrior class, right? Stop
Mhm.
being a victim about it. Stop it.
Yep.
Yeah, cool. Like, I'm a 100% disabled veteran. I got the handicap plate. Do I go park in a fucking handicap space? No, bitch, because I can walk just fine. You know what
Right.
I'm saying? Like, hopefully don't get as many speeding tickets. I don't know. But you know what I'm saying? Like,
Yeah, you don't have to reinvent the wheel, and I think
dude,
that that's something that like no one talks about, and I'm sure everybody got the same thing I got. T- Special Forces tries to do a good job of guys retiring. They try to give guys a full year. I didn't get a full year. I got about 4 months, which was fine. I mean, it was plenty of time. Um, but I mean, you just go through the same mandatory bullshit 2 week class of getting out of the army. And I'm there with guys. I'm literally there with guys who are getting chaptered. I'm there with guys who are retiring. Like it's weird. It's
yeah,
just weird. Nothing matters. You talk to this old retired first sergeant who tells you about how to do your finances or whatever. It's just fucking silly, right? But the reason why I say don't reinvent yourself, you don't have to reinvent the wheel, and everybody knows this because especially if you're in the army, if you're in the military, you are the best at finding an old PowerPoint or an old class and fixing it and changing it around. Or you don't have to reinvent the wheel here, bud. It's been made. So when you are looking at how you reinvent yourself or how you move forward with things, a lot of that is part of you. And some of my biggest things as far as mental health goes is physical fitness it walks hand in hand with mental health. If you and look, I'm 100% disabled. I have a lot of issues, man. I broke my ankle in September, and it was a setback. Broke my ankle on a guy in an elk hunt, and set me back. I didn't, I still cowboyed. I still, did what I had to do, but wasn't able to run. I put on a little more weight. I wasn't able to work out like I wanted to. I mean, I wasn't able to go train, MMA or do anything from like May until like up to like 2 weeks ago. Um, but don't reinvent yourself. So physical fitness has always been a key component of mine since I was a kid, doing martial arts, playing sports, doing that. And now that I'm 44 years old, it's like it should still be a key component of who I am and what I'm doing. So that's going to be in there, right? So that's part of me forever. That's going to be in there. There's other things that the Army taught me that I use on the civilian side on a daily basis. A lot of things the Army taught me that are very good skill sets. Anybody who's gone through any kind of like Lean Six Sigma program, I have a black belt at University of Villanova through it. And then literally the whole time I'm doing it, I'm like, you guys just stole all the shit from the Army and changed the fucking name. And your draws and risk assessments and risk management is exactly like the Army's. And so it's like the things that civilians use and do, you can still apply those and do those in the Army, or what you learn in the military. You don't have to reinvent the wheel. Take those good things and those positive attributes and put them in your rucksack and use that to help guide you and mold you forward. I do often see a lot of guys like really reject everything. See, they're kind of two sides of it. Either guys they're just bro vetted out and they can't let go of who they used to be. And I'm gonna get to this in a second because I know we've been going for a while, but they can't get rid of who they used to be. And my guys with my resume, my background are the worst offenders of this. And then on the other side, you have guys, because social media's made it so cool to be a fucking Navy SEAL and a Ranger and a Green Beret now, that guys who are in the infantry feel less than, or they feel they didn't do enough, or somebody who was a tanker or whatever wasn't the same, or I was just no, you're a fucking tanker, dude. Like fuck yeah, like you weren't just a tanker, you're a fucking tanker. And I think that is also something that's really hard. So guys look at like ways, especially with the influence of social media or the influence of just being around people. You can still be that old Navy SEAL or the guy who was in Ranger Battalion. It's just a chapter of the book. It's not the whole fucking book. You're the tanker. Take these things, but also take all those things you really learned and use that in your kit bag to figure out like how to heal, how to process, how to use the. You don't have to start over. Especially if you spent more than like 6 years in the military. You're institutionalized as fuck. You might as well went to prison for fucking 6 years because you're not a regular person. I don't care if you've never went on one deployment and never done anything. You are not a regular person, right? Um, and if you don't understand that, and then back to the problems we have, sleep deprivation and blah blah blah, and brain trauma and all of those things, being unhealthy, not being fit, those things compile on each other and make life miserable, right? Like life sucks. The other one is, I try to stress this to a lot of guys. If you love your job, you never work a day in your life. Do not get out of the military and be stuck in a job that you fucking hate. Because no matter how good your life is, no matter how amazing your wife, your kids, your adventures with your buddies, no matter what you're doing, if you dread going to work, your life is miserable because you spend most of your time at work. I'm fortunate enough that I'm retired. My wife owns an aerospace manufacturing company. We work our asses off and we don't have a lot of money right now. But it's so fun going on this journey and these goals of entrepreneurship and moving forward. And this is a completely new thing for us. And it's so much adventure and so much fun. And I'm not working when I have these long days at work, whether it's in the saddle or, behind the computer or whatever it is. And I think that that's a big one for guys is to use what you've already known, use what you know. I touched on a little bit, and I did want to. This was in my mind on this podcast to talk about with you was. So I went to a SHOT Show, a couple weeks ago, and it was my third. I stayed 2.5 times at SHOT Show, just because the first year I didn't. I was there one day. I got arrested the first night both times. I can go into that story later. I got arrested this year too. It's hopefully it's all settled now. Anyways, but one of the things that really disappointed me that I saw this year in particular was, my buddy and I, a really good buddy of mine, and he was in third group with me and a contract for the agency for a long time, and he just was done. He's just like, I can't do it. I'm actually bringing him on. He's my new partner at War Party Movement. And one of the things that we're doing at War Party Movement is I've actually ran a couple contracts, whether they're anti-human trafficking contracts or the coolest one I just did was in Poland. I went and taught the Polish AGAT and an ODA from 10th Special Forces Group tactical horsemanship. So I'm able to use that as I contracted under the LOC and move forward with that. The other thing we do is we provide training. And most of my training I've only trained law enforcement. I've never trained civilian other than the ladies, very basic stuff. But we are moving into, more training opportunities and trying to really hone in that warrior spirit and get more men involved with really what's going on with the ladies in our community. So that being said, I'm there with my buddy Naren. He's actually working for TACT Manufacturing, my wife's company. Him and I both are there representing that company. And we brought another guy, one of Naren's best friends. He's an infantry kid in Alaska. Lots of deployments. I mean, a badass 11 Bravo. And I think he spent like 10 or 12 years in the Army. And one thing I saw, because of Naren and I's background, most of our friends or the people we know or the people we kind of hang around with and all the parties we drug him to were, the Special Operations Reunion and the Green Beret Foundation parties and this and that, right? Sometimes he would find himself and he would be like, man, sometimes some of these guys are just fucking assholes. It's like, I feel weird because I was in infantry. Because guys always expect, because I'm with you two, that I must have been some fucking, Navy SEAL fucking CAG operator, fucking superhero. And it just made me think, because I was like, I never want to be that guy. And one of the things that really affected me the most, and I never really shared this story, but we all have to do a job. We all are part of this machine, whether you serve, like I said, whether you're, one IC in CAG or you are a truck driver in the 82nd. We all had a job to do. We had a mission to accomplish, and we do those things. The people that do them well, the professionals in all those MOSs, all those jobs, all those units, they understand things. When I talk to the special operations community, if you can only talk to me about tactics, I know exactly what you are. We give way too much credit. If you can't talk logistics, we're not on the same page. We give way too much credit to veterans in the special operations community. We look up to them way too much, because here's the reality of it. Navy SEALs are 18 X-rays. Okay. They're fucking 18 X-rays. They have no experience unless they came from the Marine Corps, and very few of them were infantry Marines. They're 18 X-rays. Okay. If and which means they don't have experience in regular military or anything. They come off the street and they go through a program, and now they're, and yes, program's hard, selection's hard. Not knocking any of those things. The reality is, even in Ranger Battalion, until you were a certain rank, and I would probably say staff sergeant, maybe E5, if you're alpha team leader or something, but you ain't in charge of a lot, bro. Like you're not doing these big, all this planning and all this stuff, and you're learning it, but you're not doing it on anything other than like the tactical level. You're not even brushing in the operational level. Most of these guys, on an ODA, yeah, you might run, commandos or be in charge of a company or something as a staff sergeant, but you ain't in charge of shit other than yourself. And we discredit the leadership that the regular Army provides. If you're a staff sergeant or a platoon sergeant in the regular Army, you're a social worker. You are a fucking leader. You understand leadership and leadership challenges more than anybody else in the military does. So what we've done is take these soft guys, put them on a pedestal. The coolest guys on the social media right now never rode an NCOER. They're not guys that spend fucking. I'm not saying you had to do as long as I did to have this. What I'm saying is take things with a grain of salt. So when you're the infantry kid, and whether you're a Marine, you went through Fallujah, like whatever it was, there's fucking hitters, man. Dudes did a lot of shit, right? And we put these soft guys on a pedestal, and most of the guys that you're interacting with and you think have zero leadership. They weren't in charge of shit. They couldn't lead themselves out of a fucking wet paper bag because they were told what to do and where to be and all of those things. Now this is more of me being aggressive towards the fucking dickheads of my community. Okay, the guys that want to look down on you do that. And I'm gonna go into a story real fast, try to tell as fast as I can, make it make sense. 2013, I spent a year in Afghanistan. I spent 6 months doing PSD for General Thomas and Admiral Kilrain up at Camp Alpha, and then when that 6 months was over, I went to my ODA and we were in JBAD. We were running the Kandak out of Jalalabad. I met a kid at Camp Alpha, super cool little black dude. I wish I could remember his name. I could see his face. And I used to see him at the gym all the time, just to try to talk to him and stuff, and he was a truck driver. He was in 3rd Special Forces Group, assigned GSB as a truck driver. This kid joined the Army and thought he was just like, I was going to college, want to do something different in my life. I'm from the hood, like shit, I need a way out. Great kid. Worked out hard, loved basketball, always playing basketball, and he had to drive from Bagram to Jalalabad 5 or 6 days a week, every day. Okay. This kid has never been blown up, never been shot at directly, doesn't have a cab, doesn't have anything that anybody else in the military would be like, oh, you're a combat veteran. The kid spent 6 months driving from Jalalabad, back and forth Jalalabad to Bagram every day. And what people don't understand is every single night the alarms are going off. There's incoming. There's rockets that are hitting. People are getting hit by rockets and blown up. People are dying in their sleep. That happens. Okay. Every single time before they get ready to do a convoy, they're doing rehearsals. They're doing actions on contact. They're doing all these things. They're getting all the SIGACs, which, significant events that have happened on their route. They talk about all the ambushes and all the things that have blown up and everybody who's been blown up. He's going to every single memorial service because he lives on Camp Alpha. So every single guy who's died in country, he's gone to that service. That kid's trauma is fucking insane. And for you to take that away from him, to think that he's less than or you're more than because you're some badass dude who fucking got in all these gunfights and all this shit, you are a pussy. Fuck you. That kid didn't. There's a difference between an infantry guy, and a special operations guy, and somebody who signed up to be a truck driver. So his pucker factor and what he did rolling outside the wire, even though his truck never got hit with a mortar or with an RPG or never anything, he was in convoys where vehicles were blown up and all this. So this kid, he's fucked up, right? I ended up seeing him after that deployment. They went back before I did, and I saw him at the gym. Asked him how he's doing, and he was like, I'm getting out, going home. What's your plan? I don't have a plan. He just was done with the Army, and his leadership didn't see that. No one around him saw that what he had went through was very traumatic, and it's a very traumatic experience. Um, and I think that like more veterans, especially with our background, need to talk about those kind of things because everyone wants to be a fucking cool guy. Everybody wants to do what I did, and everybody wants to run around and kid on the internet and all this shit. And it's like, bro, you had the same opportunities, same selections, same shit I did, and now you're just buying it. Cool. Or it's all these cool guys that just want to tell their fucking cool guy stories and only want to be around other cool guys and don't do that. The reality is when you understand logistics, that is what's going to make you a really good, operator, quote unquote. I hate that word because I didn't go to OTC. I was a Green Beret. And those things and understanding the people, understanding the layers of the type of warriors that are under you, understanding all the things that affect people differently. And in that same trip, those 6 months that I was with the commander, and I think this is what really helped me understand that kid's mentality and other veterans and seeing why they would be, what's going on with them is the hardest thing that's ever affected me my entire military career is that 6 months because I was PSD. I took the boss to every single SOF guy that was killed in country from January 2013 to July of 2013. I stood in every single ceremony. To this day, I can't like taps and ceremonies, like it's hard. That was the hardest thing I ever dealt with. And most people would be like, what, dude? Like you went like the thing that affected you the most was going to ceremonies, was going to, these funerals, all these on-ramp ceremonies and all these funerals of these guys in country. Yeah, that's what did it the most for me. And I look at that as a way to show guys that like that whole story of that truck driver. And I think if we're as a community, and I look at, special operations, we're the tip of the spear. The veterans of special operations are also the tip of the spear of the veteran population because they look up to us. Regardless if you want them to or you don't, or you just want to be a regular guy, you're still not. You're a veteran. When you talk to people, when you approach people, when you have interaction with folks, understand that everybody didn't do what you did. They didn't have the capabilities of doing what you did mentally and physically. But don't be a bully. Be a fucking leader, be a protector, be a mentor, and be an advisor to those kind of guys who are going through that. And try to bring them into your circle. And to those guys, the infantry guy, the tanker, the truck driver, you don't have to be a cool guy, man. You don't have to fake it. Just be you. Like, just be you. Some of the most badass dudes I've ever met that saved my life more times than I can fucking imagine are, 11 Charlies, man. I have a special place in my heart for infantry kids, for 11 Charlies. We always had infantry uplifts with us, and around us. And so I think that like those guys don't get enough recognition and understand what they do for us. Those truck drivers driving out to all those VSO sites and making sure we had food to eat and ammo to shoot and everything else. I mean, that's where credit's due. So, I think that that's a big one. And I think that we can help heal a lot of the veteran community by really uplifting people and letting them know that like, whether you're a cook or you're a Green Beret, like we all were part of this amazing organization where all walks of life from all colors, creeds, religions, everything. You're just unapologetically American and unapologetically a warrior doing what you are tasked to do. And that's kind of the simplest way I can put it. And it's just like, I just wanted to kind of share that because it was eating at me a little bit of like, why is my community of guys trying to be so fucking cool? And the reality is, it's like, we're all exactly the same, man. Now we're all just fucking dads at King Super, fucking pushing shopping carts. It's the same thing, dude. Like, we're all going through the same shit. So, that's just kind of one of my messages to my peers in the veteran community of like, hey, you know, don't be too cool, man. We're all, none of us are that cool. There's always Pat Payne. There's always guys like that. There's always a Roy Benavidez in every generation. We have Pat Payne. So I just put that out there to guys. No matter what level you served at, there's always someone more badass than you can ever imagine you to be.
Dude, that's huge, right? So, because and I think a lot of things transition with that, especially like too, like and you were kind of triggering things in me, right? Like the nonprofit space. You know what I mean? Like how many just regular military dudes get the ability to go to ayahuasca trips,
None.
right?
I can go
Like,
hunting, skiing. I
yep,
can do anything I want. I reach out,
yep,
send an email to whatever nonprofit, and
yep,
I'm gone.
and you're going, right? And that's a problem. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Because and and honestly, man, I blame social media, right? Like I just got social media too. I don't really like it. I'm not very good at it, but I'm trying, right? Because we got to do it. We got to figure out it for business
For
and
sure.
getting shit out there, right? Like,
Fuck
yeah,
my life.
yeah, it sucks. But you know what I mean? Like it's one of those things that, is kind of that necessary evil. But dude, I blame social media for a lot of that shit, right? Because they set that pedestal just like you were talking about. You know what I mean? Like and they do those different things. And I guess I see it from two lights on it. Like I think social media has really just developed like a sense of entitlement across everything for everyone. Um and it's a problem, dude. Like just do you and be you, right? But then
I
too,
think it.
like,
Yeah, I think the social media part of it, or whatever you did as your career, especially the special operator guys, the soft guys. I think for me, it tells me a little bit about your character and who you are. Like, yeah, it does get your foot in the door. It is a like, I know you've done something, you've been somewhere, but at the same time, I mean, I don't think people understand that, a lot of people also, there's dirt bags in every level, right? I've seen a lot of guys, really push themselves and go hard through the Q course selection and the Q course, and then when they make it, they think they made it, and that's all over all of special operations. And You're absolutely right, like what you're saying. And one of the things that, like, with the social media thing, it's like I said, I give guys the benefit of doubt when they have a certain that did something in their career the same way you do in the business world, the same way you do in any
yep,
world. Like, you do have to have a resume, you do have to have a path that goes with it. The problem I have is when it goes too far, when it's just all that they did. If everything on your social media is shit from you back in the military, and it's not Throwback Thursday or just a cool reminiscence or something, or talking about the veterans fit, I get that. I totally get it. I love that stuff, but it shouldn't be your identity of everything you are, right? I am super proud to be, to have been a Green Beret and be a veteran, and super proud of that, but I want people, leadership isn't about what you're doing right now. Excuse me, it's not about what you did in the past, what you're doing right now. I want people to know me, and know, for the people who know me now, for what I am now. I'm a dad who, yeah, I have this background, but like, I'm trying to just be positive in this world in any way that I can. Some of the endeavors I've taken on, you don't have to take those same ones on, or whatever, but I'm trying to be an example of what I'm doing now, not what I've done in the past. And yes, the past is your resume. It does kind of get your foot in the door. And then where I get the, like, you know, I was raised in Montana on and off the res. I'm a half breed Indian until I moved to Las Vegas in high school. I went to El Dorado High School in East Las Vegas in the fucking hood, dog. And I learned a lot of shit. The thing I love about the hood was I learned a lot of shit, a lot of code, a lot of, like, swag, a lot of way to carry yourself. The one thing I always tell people is I played pickup basketball in the 90s in North Las Vegas, homie. If you want to run them or talk shit, like, I'm not the guy. I learned how to clown from black dudes. And anybody who hangs around with a bunch of black dudes know they're the funniest motherfuckers in the world. Okay? Now, that being said, so let me get back on the cool guy thing. And this is just for people, most of the cool guys, this is my thing, and I'm not knocking anybody, and I know you medical retired early, so this almost, it'll feel like it's at you, but it's not. Um, if you when I see this stuff on social media, what bothers me is I'm like, I'm 44 years old. I retired, so 22 years in the army and retired. And these guys are running around. If you spend 6 years in the Navy as a SEAL, 6 years in as a Green Beret, one enlistment, 6 years as a Ranger. Tell me how much operational experience that person has. Okay, they don't have a fucking lot, and they might have been on 2 or 3 combat deployments that where they got. I mean, I'm not taking none of that stuff away from them at all. My problem is with the cool guys is you're 35 years old. If you're so fucking badass, then why are you not a fucking 1IC in a platoon right now? Why are you not a Navy SEAL if you're so fucking badass? You did 6 years, bud. And now we're holding on to this. Now we're fucking downplaying everybody else. You obviously aren't that badass. There's two things happen to you. Your little weak ass body couldn't do fucking 20 years, or your weak ass mind couldn't do fucking 20 years. And if it could, and you were so awesome at it, you'd be doing it right fucking now. And that is my attitude towards that mindset of the special operations veteran, because that is often the attitude of the guys who downplay everyone who did everything for them. And we are easily forgotten, and social media has done this a very good job of that too, is special operations are enablers. We are enablers for the big military, period. The regular Army, the regular Air Force, the Marine Corps, the Navy, they fucking do everything. We can't do shit without them. We are enablers for them. Whether it's a little bit forward or recons or what our specialty is, that's what we do. But we got to remember that we are a way smaller piece of the pie than the rest of the military is. And we are enablers for the entire military. Again, so that attitude to me is, I just want to remind people that, like, most of the guys have that fucking attitude. They're so badass, they'd still be doing it. So that's my kind of like backhanded, like, bitch, shut the fuck up. But but at the same time, I don't like having a negative attitude or a negative like mindset toward people. I just don't interact with those people. I just, and I got some that I know, and I know from social media, or I see them out and I'm friends, because I want to be friendly with people, and maybe hopefully I can help. Maybe my attitude or whatever rubs off on them a little bit, and they kind of see that, but just to be one of those things, I like to put it out to my fellow veterans, especially my peer veterans, I would say, in that community. Hey, you're not as cool as you fucking think. We're not that fucking cool. We're all the fucking same, and I think the regular Army guys, like I said, looking back on the experience of SHOT Show, I really saw that kind of firsthand, and it was fucking gay. It was like, you guys are fucking gay. So I think it's okay to have that, and I think that, though, like I said, don't reinvent the wheel. That humor, that dark humor, that is veterans. That's us, male, female. It's all of it. Again, going back to Factory X MMA, it was one of the first places I walked into that feels like a team room. I mean, some of the best fighters in the UFC. Coach, my wrestling coach was Cody Brundage, and it's like, they are the nicest, humble, normal guys. Same banter, same team room vibe, same thing, and it's been another cool outlet for me. So I just wanted to share that little piece of another. Hey, throwing that out there. You don't have to fight, or you don't train like I do, but here's a cool outlet that I found that's really, really helped me in a community that's embraced that, and also a community that's so close to ours. You're talking about guys who retire in their 30s, NFL players and fighters and hockey players, and head trauma on head trauma and all these things going on, and their career's over. They have to reinvent themselves when they're 34, 33 years old. So I think that's been another thing, a cool space for me. But anyway, I could fucking talk forever, dude. So I don't know.
Dude, it's all good,
If I'm
man.
not talking, something's wrong with me. When I'm not
Yeah, we'll
talking,
break it
it's
up
like,
into
bro, what's
fucking
wrong
two
with that?
segments. I don't give a shit.
No,
You know what
it's
I
all
mean?
good.
Like, fuck it. You know what I mean? Like, it's all good, bro. Like, no, dude, I definitely, like, I relate to that a lot. You know what I mean? Like, and I definitely see where you're coming at with it too, because so many people get such a big head about what they did, right? And everybody loves to always talk about what they did, right? And I get it. That made you who you are today. You know what I'm saying? Like, you went through all your trials and tribulations and all your different things to make you who you are, right? And that's important because that shaped you into the man that sits in front of me
Absolutely.
now. You know what
Absolutely.
I'm saying? But like, you
And
can't live in
oh,
that shit though.
so this is, and I'll ask you the same question. Like,
Yeah.
I'll see if it's the same for you. For me, with the War Party movement and War Party Ranch, I'm just now getting to where I want to try to share more and do things. And the hardest part about being in that space with both of those, one is a company, one is a nonprofit, is like sharing the stories that don't belong to me. Um, Trying to show people that we're still doing things, we're still doing good, we're still in the community, without being like, look at me, look at me. And it's so fucking hard. And it's like, it is kind of demoralizing at times to see the nonprofits that are okay with, showing the look at me, and look how many veterans we took hunting, and look what we did here, or look at this, and whether the numbers are accurate or they're not, or whatever, or just what they do, and or you ever been around those people where you
Yeah.
hang out at an event for like let's say SHOT Show, right, or just
Yep.
any kind of cool event. We go to the range. Let's say we go to the range. Me and
Yep.
20 of us go to the range. We hang out, and there's the one guy there who's really good at social media, and he already has like 3 reels posted by the time you get back home, and
Yep.
you're like scrolling, and so you're like, what the fuck? It's like I do so much cool shit, and I don't share none of it.
Yeah.
And I'm trying to get a little better, like because people do like I do get the comments I get on social media. Sometimes I'm like, I don't give a fuck, and then I read something like, damn it, I'm like, okay, it's positive, even if it's one person, like where I met a friend, or hey, call me, dude, like whatever. Um, but that has been one of the hardest things for me, and I'm sure that for you is probably a lot very similar, because especially the space you're in and some of the things you do behind the scenes that a lot of people might not know about with your company. Um, it's hard to share. Here, knock at the Navy SEALs. I'm not a Navy SEAL. I don't need to fucking brag about everything I did. But that's been a really hard thing, and we're really trying to kind of turn the corner there, and trying to figure out ways where we can share a story and share positive things that we're doing in the community without it being a look at me, look at me. I
Yep.
think some of that is my self consciousness of having a platform on social media that is growing. That at times when I don't even care if it goes up or down, it grow whatever, and it's so cool to have the support from people. It's so cool to be at some place like SHOT Show or the NFR, and people just walk up to me and say, Jeremiah, love what you're doing, shake my hand and walk. And I'm like, dude, hang out with me for a second. Like, so cool. But it's like that for me is what's hard, because I don't want everyone to be, I'm so self-conscious about being, look at me, look at my attention, look what I'm doing, that I think I've also missed a lot of opportunities on showcasing what the company has done, what the nonprofit has done, and I'm trying to improve on that and walk that kind of
Dude, it's a balance,
humble
bro.
line, if that makes
Like
sense.
it is, it's such a balance, and I think you hit the nail on the head there with the humble line, right? Like, because it's something I struggle with, a lot, right? Like, and I'll be transparent. I don't do any of the posting on the company stuff, like, because I immediately get fucking shadow banned, like off the rip. You know what I mean?
Yeah,
Like, I'm gonna forever
I'm
stay in
shadow
that
banned
shit.
right now. I'm like,
Yeah,
what the fuck's going
like,
on?
yeah, I like, dude, I was on social media for like a month and I was fucking shadow banned, like. You know what I mean? Like, so, and I got the company shadow banned. They just figured all that shit out. I don't know. I don't do it. You know what I mean? So, like, but yeah, no, I definitely see that, and I don't share most of the shit. Like, I said one thing that we were supporting Israel with sending carriers over there, and boom, I'll fucking shadow banned his shit. So I'm like, all right, well, I guess I'm not gonna ever touch this again. You know what I mean? Like, but yeah, dude, like we donate shit all the time. We do all that shit all the time, but it's not about the recognition factor about it. It's about actually doing something that matters. So,
Absolutely.
and the conundrum that I ran into, and I'll kind of elaborate on it, is when I left the army, right? And we hit on this like survival skill and all that other shit, right? And it's not that aspect to me, but it's I questioned what did we actually do, right? Like what change did we actually make? You know what I'm saying? Like, okay, like, cool, we went on this. Like, I did this, I helped with this, and what I mean, like, we can all go through all our NCOER bullets and all that different shit. Like, all right, sweet. Like, I did, my stint down in Colombia. Like, cool. Like, you know what I mean? Like, I helped with X, Y, and Z, and I did all this shit, right? Like, yeah, sweet. Nobody gives a fuck, right? Like, I got a fucking Lancero spear sitting behind me. You know what I mean? Like, that's a really big deal. But 99% of the people out in the world don't know what the fuck it is and don't give a shit.
Right.
You know what I mean? So, but it's that kind of stuff too. Like I think I think there's a line of talking and sharing like what you're doing, and then playing the look at me game too. You know what I mean? And I definitely struggle with it. I know QRF Hub struggles with it. Like Ram, our founder, he's like, dude, I won't go on any podcasts. I won't go do any of that stuff. I won't show my face, period. And not because like he doesn't want to show his face or do anything. He's like, I don't want to be the face of the organization. You know what
Yeah,
I'm
I'm in the
saying?
same. My buddy I was telling you about that's gonna come on. That's come on with the company, and really gonna move the needle on a lot of training that we're gonna do. He's the same way. He's just
Yep.
like, man, I'll just be the gray man. Like, you're what you've got going on, and what you've done so far. Like, it's perfect. I don't need to do anything,
Yeah.
which I'm excited about. And and at the same time, he's all about like, yeah, we provide free training to tribal police, and we do that. He's like,
Yep.
yeah, do it. I'll talk it. I'll talk in the corner, in the circles with
Yep.
people, what I got to do. But like, I don't want to be on the internet. I'm not trying to be, on social media and all that stuff. Is like, and no, I totally get that. It's just, I think like for somebody like me who's taken it on, and not even by choice. I literally was like, what, one day I was like, holy cow, like people like me on social media. Um, uh,
It's a
I
mustache, bro.
I just, and especially after going to SHOT Show, it also gave me more of like a more self conscious. Like, man, what the hell am I doing? Am I just doing this for myself, or like what, So, not that I am at all. I think I just, that self consciousness just comes in because of like what I did for a living. And I think any soldier, we always say quiet professionals, Green
Yep.
Berets, but I think that's those are all the good soldiers. My most favorite things you ask me, memories of the Army or best accolades or whatever. They are all, none of them are individual awards. None of them are individual comments. It's what my team did when I was a team sergeant. It's what my platoons did when I was a drill sergeant, when I was a platoon sergeant, when I was a squad leader. Like, it was always about them. And I think like it's hard to have a personal platform now, the way social media is set up, and you don't really have that. You have it, but you don't have it, if that makes sense. So, and that's just me being a fucking self-conscious fucking weirdo, to be honest.
No, did I definitely feel it. Like, and you guys can kind of like look through all that shit. Like, either it's me talking about the company of like what we have to offer, or it's me talking about a nonprofit, right? Like, I find that struggle like the kind of the same way, right? Like, I don't want to boast about me or my struggles or what I'm going through. You know what I mean? Like, dude, our company's had so many fucking ups and downs. Like, bro, like it's not even funny, man. Like, but that's shit that I don't know. I guess like I don't ever talk about and I don't ever bring up and I don't ever, like explain to people or show people because like in my mind, like I don't give a shit about it. You know what I mean? So I feel like other people don't either. Like I don't care about, everything and all the stuff that we did and all, like it's great, like cool. You know what I mean? Like, but what outcomes actually came out of it? And like what was the strategic win that propelled us to something else?
Right, and that's back to not reinventing the wheel. That is the soldier's mindset, the warrior's mindset.
Yep.
What we did in the military period, and that's what you do is you just accomplish tasks and you make it happen. And the shortcomings or the downfalls, the trials and tribulations to get there, no one gives a shit. It's about like, yeah, you're at the finish line. You accomplished the mission. It is what it is.
Yep.
Yeah, we AR it and figure out ways to do it better, or what we did right, what we did wrong. But it's still one of those things where I think that's what's cool about the veteran community in general. Is a lot of the guys, business mindset, have the ability to do that. To do that, and no one really talks about their backside or what they're doing on the back end, and which I think is probably a lost opportunity for somebody who's a really good veteran entrepreneur who can talk about it or do things. And but at the same time, I mean, there's plenty of mentors and things out there, that people can get involved in. And I, mentor. I always tell veterans, if you want to be an entrepreneur, like for sure, there's plenty of amazing people to look up to and follow and do and learn from. But I think like that is one of our. It's very positive attribute, but can also be almost a shortcoming at times because we're on ability. We don't have the ability to kind of. We don't want to lay out the whole process for folks, and we don't complain about shit. It's like, well, if I complain ain't gonna change anything.
Yep.
And
I'm
it's
just
like
gonna keep
sometimes
rolling.
yeah, and sometimes like the positive thing about veterans is like, yeah, we don't complain a lot, but then it's like things we should complain about, we probably just don't fucking do it.
Yeah.
Where there is like the happy medium in there. I'm like the worst offender of that. Like, the VA hasn't answered the phone in like fucking forever. Like I can't, the nonstop. We all go
And
through
it
all the
only
same
took me
shit.
9 months to get paid after retiring. Not a
Dude,
big deal.
it's I still haven't been seen for my broken ankle, so that's cool. In
Yeah,
September.
that's
So.
exciting. That's cool. Yeah.
Yeah,
My last appointment was like 7 months. Like it took me like 7 months just to get my primary care appointment. So fuck it.
jeez.
Like
Well,
yeah.
yeah, man. But I appreciate your time, brother, and talking to you.
Yeah, dude, for sure.
Yeah, I mean, anytime I can come on here and bullshit, or people like this podcast that want to ask more personal questions or whatever, man. I mean, I'm here to help. Anybody listening, if they reach out, I mean, I'm here, dude. Like, I'm not savior of the world. I can't fucking do everything, and I'm not gonna be one of those guys. It's like, call me anytime. Like, I don't know you. It's probably gonna be fucking weird if I tell you to call me, but at the same time, like, please feel free to reach out. Whatever questions and people want to get involved and want to know more about what I'm doing, want to try to help get involved, whatever, just pick my brain up. Um, very big into trying to get other veterans into the Western world, the Western culture, in the real way, the right way. Not the fake cowboy shit. I'm not knocking guys who just wear cowboy boots and a hat to a concert or do what they're gonna do, but I pride myself in really trying to working at big ranches and day working and learning the right way and doing those things, and I can definitely help people point them in the right direction if that's something you really want to do. Is you really want to work, be a stockman, be a cattleman, really work and be a horseman and those kind of the true professional of it. Yeah, so I have a lot of passions, and anybody has questions about any of them, feel free, please reach out. I can, anything I can do to help you or mentor you in any kind of way, or shit other way around too. I met some pretty amazing folks and some mentors for myself, on social media, and people reached out to me or vice versa. So
Yeah, man, and that's huge too, right? Like, and something and it just kind of hits like, right, like, and it's something I always say for QRF up too, right? Like, just because you're responding and you're showing up and doing those things, right, doesn't mean you're gonna have that bad day and you need help sometimes too. You
yeah,
know what I'm
for sure.
saying? And there's those outlets, dude, and like we can use those outlets and plug and play our brothers and sisters wherever we see it. You know what I'm saying? Like I can't tell you how many times like I've hit Jeremiah up and I'm like, yo, dude, I got this going on. You know what I mean? Like, can you help out with this? Like, I don't know what the fuck is all this stuff, and I shot him some info on it, and vice versa. You know what I mean? Like, there are times like that are out there. So by all means, dude, like, get on there, and actually go check out, like War Party, what Jeremiah's been doing with everything. It's huge, man, and honestly, he's hands down one of the most humble and like reserved people when it comes to what he's doing, and it's amazing, and it's going to impact and change this country and for the absolute better. You know what I mean? And I can wholeheartedly say that I know what you're doing matters because it's huge, man. And truly for me, like thank you. And any way that I can get involved and help and do that stuff, like dude, you got my number. Like and we'll be there. So
Yeah, I appreciate it, man, for sure.
yeah. So you want to throw out your like website and all that good stuff so people can find that just for anybody that's not following you?
Yeah, so warpartymovement.com. And there's follow on links if you just get to warpartymovement.com. They'll take you to War Party Ranch. War Party Ranch is under warpartymovement.org. We're having some website issues because we're retarded. Um,
Same.
but War Party, yeah, we're gonna pay somebody. I'm pretty sure now. Warpartymovement.com or warpartymovement.org is what War Party Ranch is. That's a nonprofit space. We do have merchandise and stuff on warpartymovement.com. And then the social media is all linked to each other as well. So War Party Movement on Instagram, War Party Ranch on Instagram. And then my personal Instagram is Jeremiah_Blackbeard. So those are easiest ways to hit anybody up. Feel free to DM questions, whether it's to the War Party Movement, War Party Ranch, to myself, whatever. Yeah, and all support's awesome. We appreciate everything, every little support, that we get. So very grateful for
No, dude, fuck that. Get on there and buy some damn War Party merch and
it.
support what this dude's doing. All right. Same thing for QRF. Like, get out there and buy some damn QRF up merch. All right. Like, what we're doing matters. And we are all in both self funded when it comes to this stuff. Right. Like, and we are rowing as hard as we can. But without everybody's support and without all those things, like, the money's got to come from somewhere and the job's got to get done, right? Support a good organization. We'll help out, whether it's sponsorship packages or other things. We've got events we attend, like QRF up. We've got a big ass gala coming up in Florida in June. Like Jeremiah, I hope you can make it out to it. Like
when
I'll save
where
you a seat. It's
Yeah.
down in Port Charlotte, Florida, in June 14th. So
Okay.
it's upcoming summer. We've got another couple events that we're running. We're running a Heroes Appreciation Day out in Iowa. We're looking at getting something spun up down in Texas. And hell, maybe we can get something spun up out by you. You know what I mean? Like as we start getting all these different places opened up. Like we can absolutely do that. And at the end of the day, we need to support one another because nobody else is coming to save us, right? Like we got to
For
do it
sure.
ourselves, and that's just the truth of it. And dude, I'm right there with you, brother. Like I'm so sick and tired of all this fratricide that keeps going on with veterans hating on other veterans instead of just being like, look, dude, like we have the same goals. Like let's just fucking make it work together and get shit done.
Absolutely.
So,
Absolutely.
but yeah, man, cool.
Yeah. Well, again, I appreciate you, brother.